Good for me. All right, so we're going to talk about things that you need to consider when you are starting a geographic farm. So the most important thing that you have to look at is going to be your turnover ratio. If no one moves from your neighborhood, it's not a good area to farm. So we're going to go through some activities on that, and I kind of share a story with turnover ratio and the importance of it. This kind of ties into the knowledge part as well. So in the area that I lived in before I moved here, we knew we were moving down here, so we went into a rental. And in that area, no one ever moved. Like I'm talking, kids inherited the houses they grew up in, and they were living in there. So I had a good friend of mine that was with Keller Williams. He was a great agent, great young agent. He started farming. I had to get a postcard every month of all the real estate activity in the area, thinking about selling your house, but the typical marketing type activities. About 10 months into it, I stopped him in the office one day. I said, "Hey, I've been getting your postcards. How's that working out for you?" He's like, "Awful." He's like, "I haven't got a single call off of 10 months of prospecting," because he didn't go in and look at the turnover rate. Like no one sold in this neighborhood. So that's probably the number one important thing you got to look at. The second thing you got to look at is the price point. So is the price point that's going to support what you're going to need to spend on them? Because there is going to be a large amount of marketing that you'll have to do to dominate that farm, and that's going to be kind of a fixed price point. And if you're selling, if the houses in there are $150,000 townhouses, if you can find those, it may not support your return on investment in that. The third thing to think about is the knowledge. What do you know about the area? I'm not going to go farm a neighborhood up in Onslow County. I don't know enough about the area. The activity we're going to do is in Onslow County, but so you need to know you need to make sure you have a knowledge base on the area. Another example, and this goes into the knowledge thing, is I'll use St. James as an example. Giant potential farming area. However, if someone was just looking at the numbers, just the raw numbers, they may say, "Oh my God, the turnover ratio is awesome in there." However, not knowing the area, it's gated. Someone's going to come really attack you if you try to go out and do some farming in there and try to door knock in there. So what you know about the area is going to play into that a lot as well. Then the size of the farm is going to play into your equation as well. So the number that we usually use is 250 to 500. That's kind of like a good sweet spot of it. Anything less than that, even if you have a high turnover, might not get you the return on investment that you need. Anything higher than 500, it's really hard to walk that farm and to go out there and really be knowledgeable and get out there and hit the pavement on it. And then the fifth and final factor that's going to go into choosing your farm is the farm already dominated? So is there an agent that's already in there and dominating that neighborhood? Now you can choose, you can say, yes, I'm going to go get that person that's dominating that neighborhood, but it is something to think about. And also something to think about, is that person, that's dominating the neighborhood, maybe they're looking to get out of the business, or they're, so you have to think about who it is, but you do have to analyze that data too. So all those things are going to come into play when you are choosing which farm you want to work. Questions, comments, as far as like choosing your farm and what to consider on there. You guys in a nacho coma? Alyssa, no more nachos next time. All right. So then you go, once you have chosen kind of like where you want to look at the farm, we're going to go through an activity in a few minutes here together. On here, you need to choose your tools. So where you're gonna go find this data. So you may look at an area and say, again, St. James, I'm gonna look there. You need to use the tools that are out there for you. And luckily enough, in the 21st century that we live in, a lot of these are right on demand for you. So the first thing you're gonna look at is the property data. So you can use the tool. I'll show you how to do that in MLS in just a couple minutes. You're going to look at the tax records, so you can pull in all of the addresses in there, so that you can see if the farm, the numbers of houses in the farm. The second thing you're going to look at is the MLS. So you're going to go in there and you're going to be able to sort out how many houses actually sold in there, so you can start calculating your turnover in there. And then the third thing, which we'll go through together, is going to be using this tool that we put together for you. So this is a tool that you can use to calculate the return on investment for a geographic farm area. So this one we're going to do together. And then I have some worksheets that you can take for if you want to analyze your own farm as well. So on the back side, there's also a sample letter that we'll get to when we go through some of the samples of what a program could look like. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the MLS. Out of there. So the first thing on there is the tax record. So again, right from Flex, very powerful tool within there is CRS. It's where you can search the public records for most of the counties in North Carolina, even outside of where we service, you can add those, and even a couple into South Carolina. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go under menu and CRS prospecting. Show of hands, who uses CRS to look up anything? A few of them, awesome. Do you use that in Raleigh, Finn? Awesome, cool. All right, so CRS prospecting. So we're going to go in there. It's going to pull up the third-party app. And then from there, you're going to search for the house data for the neighborhood that you're thinking of creating your farm from. So in the left-hand side, you can just start typing either an owner, an address. In this case, we're going to choose a subdivision. So the subdivision that I chose, just for the example for today, is one up in Onslow County. I figured it would be no one here would be wanting to scarf up that farm. So it's called the Landing. All right, and as you scroll through there, it starts with all the owners' names, but then as you scroll down, and this is just a little pro tip, this is the property owner, so that's probably going to be any HOA owned properties like lots and stuff like that. So you don't want to choose that one. You want to scroll down. In this case, I know that it wasn't finding the exact one, so I'm going to say it contains the landing.
Oh, the landing is right there.
Yeah, that's not the one though. That's just, yeah. So that's trial and error in this case. I happen to know that it should be this one here. So I zoom in because I know, again, if it's an area, going back to knowledge, you're going to know exactly where it looks like, where it is on the map. And you can see, okay, is this the one I want? Yep, I'm going to keep zooming in. All right, and now I have my neighborhood. Now, if the subdivision itself was searchable in there, and I do not have an answer as to why this one did not come up as searchable under subdivision, it would automatically kind of have it all there for you. But in this case, I know this is the subdivision. I'm just going to draw this freehand and say, okay, give me this entire thing. Once I do that, it's going to bring me down. So now I know there are 264 potential properties in that subdivision. So that's going to be the first thing that we would use on there. Questions? Yeah.
I'm a South Carolina agent.
Uh-huh.
Does the South Carolina MLS have the same?
Yep, that's the same exact tool in there. And even if you're with your North Carolina, we can pull in Horry and Georgetown County. And in South Carolina, you can pull in Brunswick and other counties too. Like this, I could even go out to the Triangle and stuff too.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, any other questions?
You're saying right now, because of the original, that we have access, how about Mecklenburg?
Let's find out.
Just curious.
Yeah. I want to say it's all of them. Or yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I want to say it's anybody who's that has the CRS data service.
Okay.
Yep. One little another pro tip here. This one is, you know how a lot of subdivisions are built in phases? If it's in different phases, you do want to select and pull all of them in. So if this was phase 1, 2, 3, 4, like the one I did in Myrtle Beach the other day, I just wanted to make sure I included all 4 of those. Again, if it's going back to your knowledge, if it's the entire farm that you have, if there's townhouses in the back that you don't want to touch, then just don't choose those ones. So that's the first tool, is pulling in the data. So that's the first thing you're going to look at Does it support kind of, as we're putting together this info, does it support what we're trying to do?
Is there a minimum age that you would recommend? Because I mean, like a subdivision, it should be at least 3 years old. Or is there like-
That's a great question. And going back to the last slide there, we'll go through it more in the activity. You're going to be looking for a certain turnover ratio for sure. You want to take a note of it. You want at least a 6% turnover ratio. That's what we're looking for. And that is just to be statistically in line with the national turnover, like 6% of the country moves on an annual basis. So if you're below that, then your neighborhood is below the national average. With a couple of asterisks that I'll add for that. And this goes to that third point there, that knowledge. If you know it's a 3 to 5 year old subdivision, like mine as an example, if I looked the last 2 years, there's not many sales there. However, if I know that 3 to 5, 5 to 7 turnover, is there, then I may start farming that now, knowing that in that 3 to 5 years. A perfect example of that down here, because I was talking to an agent who was in my class in Myrtle Beach last week, and she's both areas. She was looking at the farm in Calabash. Turnover ratio is like off the charts there because it was probably 7 to 10 years ago.
20 years old.
Well, it's part, yeah. So yeah, part of it probably finished, right?
Actually, I think I heard they finally sold out.
So she was looking at the turnover and she's like, oh my God, it's like 15% turnover in there. That would also tell me, okay, they're probably not going to be turning over again anytime soon. So you want to make sure if you're too low, are there other circumstances that you know that to be true? And if it's too high, and then the other thing, we had a good conversation about age of the inhabitants too. Is that something you want to consider to hit an area that that, not saying jokingly, but they're going to be moving on to, either assisted living or, otherwise selling the property too. So great question though, John.
Yeah, Chris, also, if it's too high, then you got to be cognizant of the reason it's high.
Right.
It may be high because
The highway's going in. Right.
Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely great point.
which that goes back to the knowledge point.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's probably, the data is important, but then I would say the secondary one is definitely your knowledge of it. So that's the raw data of how many houses are there. The second component that you're going to use is going to be Flex itself. So now you're going to search to see, okay, how many houses have sold in there. And I'm going to always be looking at the last 365 days, last year for this, well, 366, I guess is what they put in here. So I'm just going to go to quick search. And I'm going to pull in county just to make sure that there's not another. And then I'm going to pull in. Okay. I'm going to change it from active to sold because that's all I care about for this example. And I have 26 sold. So those are the two components that we're going to look at to analyze the turnover ratio in this subdivision.
So that would be.
Now, right off the top of my head, you can see it's close to 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, so like on the surface level, looks like a great area to farm for sure. Questions? Everybody know? Yeah.
You've seen 3 homes for sale in that area by 3 different agents.
Mhm.
Would you consider that area already dominated?
3 different agents? Absolutely not.
How
No.
many do you think?
If there was one agent that sold all 3 houses, then I would say that, okay, that's more of the dominant kind of thing. Yeah, so I would say 3 different agents would be the exact opposite of a dominant. So that's the other thing that we're going to look at here. So we're then going to go to detail. So this, once we have, we know these are the 26 sold. I'm sorry, not detail. I'm going to go to list. So as we go to list, you're going to look under listing member. And you can just do a quick scan there and just see, if I don't see a certain agent that's dominating, then I'm not going to worry about having a dominant agent. If
click the listing number.
Yeah, it will put them all together.
But isn't it true, Chris, that if you have a dominating agent, that doesn't mean you can't do marketing? In there?
Absolutely not. It's just going to be one of the factors I'm going to take into
'Cause
account.
I
And
had
it could
one
be
in my neighborhood,
Mhm.
and wife and me, I cannot figure out how that person got to be a dominating.
sure. So that's all going to play into it too. And there may be some people you're like, I don't like that person. I'm going to specifically go after taking over that neighborhood.
I was gonna say, they might need fresh air in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, you can sort that, and you can see I'm only seeing 2 by Robin, 2 by Renee. I'm out of 26 houses, I'm not seeing anybody right on the surface that's a dominant agent. If I saw, somebody already has 50% of that neighborhood, you're in for an uphill battle. So it's just gonna kind of go into your calculus as a whole.
If somebody has more than 20%, 30%, what's the?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 30% is a
30%.
good number. It's going to be what we're going to use to calculate the ROI on it. So I would definitely go to that. And then the other component that you're going to get from the MLS data is going to be your average sales price. So you can just go, what I would do is I would go up to CMA and then just do a 1-line CMA. That's going to give me my data and my average median sales price in there. So I've got my median sales price, 300,000, or 303,801 is what we got on there. So that's the data that we're going to use to drive our calculation. Questions on how I did any of that stuff? You guys are smarter
The
than me.
CRS one is just to figure out how many homes.
Yeah. So we're just gathering the data. So we're just gathering the data so far. Absolutely. Yep. All right, and then the third component, going back to the planting the seeds part, the third tool is going to be the calculation tool. So this is a calculation tool that we put together for you. So you're going to want to grab this worksheet here, and we're going to go through this farm together as an activity to measure out what the potential return on investment is and see if it works. So part A there, we had 264 homes. That's what we pulled from the geographic, from the CRS data. You might want a calculator out for this too. And there are 26 homes. We just pulled that from the MLS. So 26 homes have sold in the last year. So you'll throw 26 divided by 264. And hopefully someone gives me a number on that. 9.8. Yep. 9.8, you can round up to 10 for sure. All right, questions on that? So again, we're looking for at least a 6% turnover. Again, unless you know of some information that would support that you're expecting a higher turnover, or you know it's a new development where you're expecting a higher turnover. Part 2 is we're going to calculate the potential income. So here, we're going to take that same number of houses that we know sold. So we got 26. And again, you're going to shoot for 30 to 50%, again, to be that dominant agent in a geographic farm. I would say 50 would definitely be dominating. The first year, I would say 30% would be, you're doing pretty darn well in there. So we use 30% as our calculation in there. So you're going to take the 26 number of houses that you know sold in there, and you're going to multiply that by 30%, or 0.3, and round up, because you're confident you're going to get that extra house. Everybody got 8? Awesome. All right. Then we got the average sales price. So from the MLS, the 1-line CMA, we had that average sales price of $303,000. We're going to use an average commission of 2.75, knowing that our goal, of course, is to get at least 3%, but knowing full well we're going to get some 2.5s in there for sure. So we're going to take an average of 2.75. So you're going to take your average sales price times 2.75. It's going to give you your anticipated commission per sale. Anybody have a number for that, rounding up? 8,333. Is that what you got? Awesome. Then you're going to take that 8,333 times the number of sales you're anticipating in there. And you should come up with a number That's a 66664, right? What you guys got?
Oh,
Jonathan, you just got a little aggressive with your sixes.
yeah, I got 4 6s, so it's better than.
All right, so now we're saying that's the potential
66,
income.
right.
That's the potential income in this farm, anticipating, we're gonna get 30% market share over that the course of the first year. Questions on part 2?
I mean, is that realistic? To think you could come in, take that 5%?
I think it's realistic if you're going through if you're consistent with your marketing, and you don't just, and you do the other activities.
Yeah, you can't just kind of,
You can't just throw one postcard out there and hope that you get 30%. Or you can't just do a just sold postcard and expect 30%. Those are all parts of it that we'll go over for the remainder of the class. Questions on part 2? But yeah, I would say that's a realistic concern. I mean, a realistic expectation. All right, then part 3, we're calculating the cost of the farm. So we're going to go over kind of the details of what you're going to do here. But you're going to do a monthly postcard campaign. So you're going to send a farming postcard out to everybody in the neighborhood once a month. So you're going to take the number of houses. So we got 264 times $1.04, which is kind of the average postcard price, with postage going up and up and up and printing going up and up and up. And we're going to do that for 12 months. Should come up with, what's that?
325.
I hope not. Yeah. 3,295 is what I rounded up to. Yeah,
Yes, you're right.
exactly.
That's just if you could pinpoint the 8 ones that you sold to.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But you gotta get them to know who you are first. So.
Sorry.
All right, and then the second component is going to be monthly pop buy. So we're going to go over what all these look like too. I wanted to go over the calculation of it first. So monthly pop buys, we're going to say, you want to take about 10% of your farm size on a monthly basis and touch each one of them. So that way, kind of over the course of the year, taking a couple months off, you've knocked on every door, dropped something off at each one of the houses. So roughly, I'd say 25 a month is what I use for my calculation there. So 25 a month times, you should be able to get that around $5. I got a great picture last night from an agent who took the class last week in Myrtle Beach, and she showed me she's picked up a pitcher and some Crystal Light packets for lemonade, and she put a cheesy, squeeze some lemonade kind of thing on there. She got it for $2. So her cost was $2 per on that. So for average purposes, I use $5 for the calculation. So you're going to take 25 times 5 times 12 times 12. What do you come up with for that? 1,500. Perfect. Now, the key ingredient is going to be your farming events. And we're going to go, again, we'll go over what those are exactly. We're going to say you're going to spend $750 on those each time, and you're going to do at least 2 of those a year. So that one's calculated in there for $1,500 for you. Now, to what Jonathan was talking about, you're going to send every property you do sell in there, you're going to send a just sold postcard out to them too. So in addition to your 12 monthly touches, you're going to send every property that you sold in there, you're going to send a just sold postcard out too. So that we're going to take the number of houses you sold. We're going to say that, well, the number of houses in the farm, so 264 times 90, because these are usually smaller postcards, so you get them a little cheaper. And then times the number of properties you sold, which is 8. What do you come up with for that? Perfect. And then the X factor, the next one is going to be sponsor. So do you have a sponsor that's going to, partner with you? So if maybe you touch base with Lee, and Lee wants to send out some co-branded material for you. He can help sponsor those postcards, maybe defer some of that cost. So let's just say he contributes $750 to that campaign throughout the year. Of course, go for more, but at least that's going to take off of your total cost. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah, and the monthly divide by the 25, that means you're going to make 25 of these
Little pop-bys every month.
So everybody's going to get one.
Essentially over the course of the year. Yeah, and you can bump that up or down depending on what your budget looks like, or how often you want to get out there too. If you choose to farm the neighborhood that you live in, which has its pluses and its minuses, it's maybe a little easier for you to walk that neighborhood and do pop-bys there. So just all those things to consider. So then you're going to talk, the next thing you're going to calculate is the total cost of the farm. So you're going to take all that stuff from section 3, K plus L plus M plus N minus O. O is going to be what that sponsorship was.
Did you say 750 for this one?
Yeah. Yeah, I had 750. Yep. And when somebody gets that math, go ahead and shout it out. You got it, Carol. Star. Big green gold star for the day. All right. So now the final component is to measure the ROI. So for that, we're going to say, what's our potential income divided by the total cost? So you have 66664 divided by your total cost of 7446, and you're going to come out with your ROI. What do we got? 8.95 or 9. So you're going to get a 9-to-1 return on your investment in that neighborhood. 9x ROI. I'd say it's not good as Grant. It's not as good as Grant Cardone's 10x, but it's pretty darn good. So what would you say to this farm?
Get it, do it.
Yeah. So you got a 9-to-1 ROI on that. What we're looking for, and this is just my preference, I'm going to look at it needs to have at least a 4-to-1 ROI. That's the baseline of what I'm looking at, and that's just using, hey, if I refer Jonathan a seller in Oak Island, it's kind of standard is 25%. Of course, we know we're not setting standards. You can choose to do a higher or lower referral fee. So that return on investment is 4-to-1. That's kind of what I use as the bottom of what I'm going to have, if what I'm expecting my money to return to me in any spending, because that's your time, your effort, all that stuff into it. Because statistically, if I give Megan $1 and she gives me 3 back, that should make sense, right? But when you take into account time and everything else, I'm looking for at least a 4x ROI. Questions? All right, so I have another sheet, so you guys can take these as we finish up here. It's going to be some worksheets for you. You can make copies of. So if you want to analyze a farm as you're thinking of this as one of your lead generation strategies, you can calculate it out. I also have it available on email as well if you want a PDF copy of it. Questions, thoughts?
So here's a question, I should know, but in the MREA model, you're hitting the percentages from a marketing standpoint, what percent of our budget?
9.2. Yeah.
Total.
It's going up for the new version when that ever comes out. It's going to be around 12, but for MREA, the red book is 9.2 for marketing. Any other questions? How'd you guys feel about that? I know it's math, it's after lunch, but I thought after lunch would work good for math. So yeah, so take this and I think it's a great tool because now you're using data and not just emotion. Data combined with emotion, and you can create a powerful farm. All right, so now we've analyzed the tool, we've chosen our farm, we're ready to go out there and start farming our neighborhood. What does that look like? So the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna develop your touch plan. So what are you going to do to touch your database? You've got to get out there and do it. We're going to talk about an intro letter, what that can do. So I would recommend getting something out as that first mailing. That's going to, again, introduce yourself to the farm. On the flip side of what you have and what we just did for that worksheet is a sample letter that you can use for that. You're then also going to start a farming campaign with postcards. They still work. They have it's the consistency that's required for postcards to work. You have to hit them over and over. Who's ever gotten a flyer from Anderson Windows? Every month I get one of those. I literally open it over my recycling bin, or I take my mail from my mailbox, I walk to the recycling bin, but it has an effect. It's doing its job. When time comes for me to replace my windows, Anderson's going to be towards the top of that list just from the branding they've done. So that's what your postcards are doing. It's not necessarily getting them to say, to act right then on it. It's you're creating that consistent habit so that when that time comes, you're in that high emotional proximity to when they're ready to go. So I would recommend monthly. If your budget doesn't allow for it, at least bi-monthly for sure, because then as you're getting some sales in there and you're getting those just sold postcards, you are, maybe hitting them monthly. You're also going to do some events in there. This is going to be the key to it. You need to get out, get into your farm. Now, as we talked about, again, thinking about the knowledge of your area, you do need to know, are they going to allow you to throw an event in there? Is it going to be something like, again, the example I'll use from the class last week, gated community, they were not going to let him in there. We had to think out of the box because the numbers worked so well for him. He's like, I have to find a way into this neighborhood. What can we do? So maybe it's as simple as something like literally right outside the gates, you set up a shred-it day. And you set that shred truck or ice cream truck or a snow cone truck or whatever you choose to be your event. If you can't do it inside there, get creative with it. If it, again, if the math works for it. And then Popeyes, we're going to talk about what those can look like. My motto for that is the cheesier, the better. So if you come up with I have a couple examples on here for really go for extra cheese factor on those because it's gonna work. And then your evidence of success. So that's going to be your just sold postcards. So that's going to be your campaign. That's where you're planting the seeds. You're continually you're planting the seeds for tomorrow's recognition of the time well spent with that money, with the harvesting of it. Questions on what you can do for developing your touch plan. We'll go into detail a little bit more on some of those too.
So if you're targeting a neighborhood, and say I am the buyer's agent and sold that, okay to sell out to sold?
I mean, you would put on there, I represent a buyer.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you work with the leverage department on that as an example, they could put, represented buyer on there. Yep. And you'd have to get your own photo or permission to use a photo.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Hmm?
Do you have someone who can help with these Popeye tags and whatever?
I have a couple of examples, and if you email me too, I can give you all 12 of them that are high on the cheese factor.
And then you just print it on your computer?
Yeah, it's just a Word doc. You can edit it, you can brand it, you put your branding on it for sure. My recommendation would probably be to, put that on the back of a business card and tie it somehow to whatever your tchotchke that you're
Make
dropping
it on a
off.
sticker, pop it on.
Yep.
The other question is tracking. What's the best way to track? Okay, I pop by all these people, but these people need a pop by, these people need a door knock. Okay, I make the plan, but then
Sure.
it's actual physical addresses. So how are you?
So you got a couple of different options with that. So if you took that CRS data as an example, you can export that into a spreadsheet, and then you could track your touches on there. You could also, there are some apps out there for door knocking that you could use for that. So if you just Googled, I don't know anything off the top of my head, but I saw one from one of our prospecting partners with Keller Williams. I don't forget. Mojo does have one, yeah. So you can mark which doors you stopped at. So we'll go detail into what some of those events can look like, give you some ideas, get you some brainstorming. Would love to hear some of your ideas too, what you guys have done. All right. So why we're doing this whole thing as far as planting the seeds is you need to understand, kind of the life cycle. If anybody has taken Ignite recently or taught Ignite recently, this is literally right from that. So the moving cycle of Americans is it's up to about 7 to 10 years is where we're at right now. We're staying in our houses from 7 to 10 years. This is the day they buy the house. The next day is they are no further away from buying another property than they'll ever be than the day after that. What real estate agents are really good at is maybe some touches right here and here. and then they kind of fall off and they lose track. And then that 7 to 10 years later, that's how, you get a statistic like we share it all the time, about 80%, 78% of surveys from the National Association of Realtors. They do a buyer and seller survey every year. It usually ranges between 75 and 82% of people who said they would use the same agent or refer them out. However, only 18% actually do use the same agent or refer them out. And that's because we are really not good at that follow-up pattern, because people are going to make their decisions based on who's in the closest emotional proximity when the time for them comes to move. So that's why the farming campaign is you're planting the seeds so that when they are ready, you're the only person they think of. And then hopefully, if you're in a neighborhood where you can put signs up, they're seeing your signs over and over and over again. Questions?
So is this like a 1-year marketing plan?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to develop it each year, and hopefully you're going to start dominating it, and then, probably going to be able to, again, depending on your personality type and how you are, you may decide to tune back the postcards and spend more money on events. And maybe you're up to 4 or 5 events because you're the, now you're the mayor of that neighborhood, and you can throw the events and really live off of those.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any updated numbers? I know we're talking about 7 to 10 years average nationally, but for our specific markets that tend to be destination markets, secondary markets, are there any revised numbers on it?
I don't have any.
To know, but
Yeah, I haven't seen any. I can definitely try to see what I can dig up on that, but yeah,
we're in a different kind of situation.
we are. We get in a different situation from a couple perspectives too. I think the other X factor on that, and I'll use myself as an example for this. I bought new construction because from out of the area, it was a heck of a lot more than I could afford where I was, and it was a nice area. And it was in the school district I wanted. However, 3 to 4 years later, it's not where I would choose to live. So you get that kind of that's going to chunk down that life cycle there, where I'm ready to move 4 years after.
We got a COVID back too.
We're going to throw all those. Yeah.
And we can figure out exactly for how long, because our calculator is going to show us that. So if we have 10% turnover, it takes 10 years.
Yeah. You took the whole. Yeah, you take the whole island or something.
Take the whole
Take the
island,
whole
we figure out the turnover.
I'll help you out with it.
All right. So then once you've kind of established what your farming campaign is going to look like, you've got to start fertilizing it. So again, sorry for the cheesiness, but I think it works here. You're going to fertilize that farm. You need to consistently get out there. So you need to, you need to hit that farm with consistency. You need to walk that farm. You need to get out there. You need to be consistent. You also, the second thing you need to do is you need to provide relevancy. You need to make sure that you are sending relevant information there. You need to be getting them information that is relevant to what they want. We tend to definitely just send, hey, look what I just sold. A lot of the farming campaigns I've seen is, this is what I just sold, and are you curious about the value of your home? Not really relevant kind of information. We're going to give you some examples of how you can be relevant, but not always just real estate info. So maybe it's a postcard about the top 5 places to visit in North Carolina, and it just again, it's just keeping you top of mind, and it's got some good graphical information on there. And then of course you want to have accuracy in your information. If they're in your farm, you want to make sure that you're sending them information from that farm, not something that's 3 counties over. And then the final component is your personalization. You need to, and this is where getting out and knowing the people in your farm is going to just, bump up your consistency in there. And that's, again, personalization. So you need to, when you're going out and knocking on the doors and dropping off those Popeyes and you notice a dog, talk to the dog, find out the name. And then the next time you're doing a Popeye, if you bring a treat for Bogey, you just really up your chances of converting that person. And then, my God, I can't believe that Lynn remembered that I have a dog named Bogey. And on top of that, brought me a treat, or brought Bogey a treat. Maybe brought me a treat too, but so questions? So you know we love our acronyms at Keller Williams, right? CRAP. Fertilize your farm with CRAP.
That works.
Thank you. I'm out of here.
If you know that, let's go.
I worked really hard to do that. I did that in Myrtle Beach last week, and it was like 30 seconds before I caught it, and and I got a standing ovation from one guy who was like that. And so yeah, so fertilize your farm with crap. Yeah, right. All right. So we're going to talk about the next thing we're going to talk about is walking that farm. So again, this is where the real power is going to start kicking in, because the postcards are great for your campaign of getting that, you're getting your message out there. Very rarely you're going to get someone that's like, oh my God, you told me the top 3 books to read in 2022. I want you to list my house. But it's that consistency combined with getting out there and actually walking it. So getting to know your farm with the charm. So really throw on the charm factor here. Again, so this is one we used on the team that I was on, giving you your Irish luck. We hope you get at least $1. So what we did with that was $1 scratch-off lottery ticket. We tied, cleverly tied our business cards to that with that label. Then maybe that, and that's $1 or $2 plus the cost of the ribbon and business cards and stuff like that. And then the other one, we used is a little bit more expensive one, and that was towards the beginning of the school year. That was our August pop by, and that was just maybe something to help them with through the chaos, some pencils, some school supplies, maybe a little nip for the parents to get through the first few days of school. So you got to get out there, and you're not doing these to, hey, are you thinking about buying or selling and investing in real estate? You're getting out there, and this is just going to having something to give them. It's going to lower their defenses when you get there. They know you're not a salesperson. And then again, hopefully as you're building rapport in your farm, they're going to know you, maybe even open the door before you get there as they start knowing you. So we recommend to start at like that 10% of the farm size. But if you know that that's your superpower is getting out there and knowing the neighborhood, bump that up, take off somewhere else. Questions on yeah.
Question.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
So a lot of properties are rental properties, so you're not going to own doors, it's not the owner.
Yeah.
How do you adjust for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to send something, you're going to do something a little differently for that, and you're going to modify it based on your knowledge. So when you get that information from CRS, it's going to have the property's owner's address, as well as the mailing address. So you can, send your postcards off to them as your, so modify it a little bit. You're not going to walk it that way either. Great question. Great point. Any other questions on walking the farm and giving your pop buys? So that's not a component to be overlooked. You can also use these. This doesn't have to be just for geographic farms. These work really good for Spear too. We did some last year with pumpkins. So we had those little mini pumpkins that you could purchase, and we wrapped them all up, and those were great little tools. Other questions? Yeah.
Not a question, but a comment.
Yeah.
We also do them for our past clients. So
Yes.
that we stay on
Yeah.
their mind as well.
Absolutely. And we go into events too. Those become big for past clients who maybe gets the wheels churning up here a little bit for those. All right. So now events. The events. This is really your secret fertilizer in there. So you talked about the craft being the fertilizer, but this is going to be the way you're going to really engage with that farm. So you want to hold again at least. I would recommend at least 2 to 3 if you know that your superpower is throwing a party and throwing an event. So as an example, I'll use Manda as an example. She can throw a party. She's not going to send out 400 postcards every month. She would rather spend that money on throwing 10 parties throughout the neighborhood. So what kind of events are you going to have? What kind of events is the HOA or in the subdivision going to allow? Some ones that we've seen that work really well is an Easter egg hunt. So you're gonna, get that out there, have all the kids running around like crazy in a field if you've got a nice open space for that. Pumpkin patch works really well too. So again, that might be one that works in a subdivision or a farm that you can't physically get into. Maybe you set up the pumpkin patch in an area that you rent. Another idea is going to be a welcome to the neighborhood barbecue. So if you were lucky enough maybe to bring in a buyer for someone in your farm as well, throw a party for the whole neighborhood, have some sponsors help you with that. That's a great idea. Paper shredding event is another popular one. I know that Raza Love and her team just did one in Brunswick Forest. And again, they couldn't go inside, so they did it a little bit outside and in one of the built out parcels out there, and had a paper truck out there. And it was pretty full. They filled up the truck during that time. Cookie swap, as we think of like the holiday season, what a great idea to get people together. Again, because now they're supplying all the stuff too. They're bringing all the cookies and swapping them all around. And then just some neighborhood parties. I think another one that's not on here is combining with what we already do with Keller Williams. What would pie day look like for a farm? Be a little on the expensive side, but if you did all of, I want to say the apples are cheaper. One of them is a lot cheaper each year. I think they're like $6 each. It's a pumpkin. It's a lot cheaper. And has anybody ever? I mean, who's participated in pie day?
That's great.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, or maybe it's just your VIPs that you decide to give pies to there. But great events. Have them come to. Again, knowing your HOA or your subdivision or whatever you're going to be able to farm, what kind of facilities they may have for you too. And then don't underestimate sponsorships for these. We have, in our industry, we know we're the gatekeepers for all these other things. Lee couldn't do much without us. We get mortgage people, all those industries, we are the gatekeepers of all of their income. They love the opportunity to throw money at us. I threw an event, one of the, on my other team in Rhode Island, we did an event. It was just a past client, so it wasn't a farming one. We had a professional chef come in, and he demoed a dish for us, or a whole dinner for us. And they also then got to eat the food, like buffet style, but he demoed that. And that whole event cost about $1,500. It was all paid for by my vendor partners, because they would love to get in front of your sphere and your past clients. So they were throwing money at me for that. Questions? Any other ideas? Or what have you guys seen for any kind of events? Love to crowdsource event ideas. Heard a great one. It won't really work around here because we don't have leaves as much. But if you are in a neighborhood which has leaves, going for your Popeye kind of thing, giving them some leaf bags that are branded for you, and then how they just line the streets with them. All your branding right on the streets for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Won't work as much, at least not where I'm at with leaves. But what else do you guys think?
Like coffee shop drop in.
There you go.
Ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream socials always work, right? Especially, again, knowing your demographics.
Right.
If there's no kids in the neighborhood, well, maybe the ice cream social still works, but definitely, it's great ideas for that. All right, so here are some other sample postcard and Popeye ideas that we've come up for you. Feel free to take a screenshot of it. Anybody emails me, I can send you the entire slide deck as well. But again, thinking of that consistency and the relevancy factor that we talked about in putting your farm together. Just some ideas to not beat them over the head with just real estate information. So we've got, local market stats. So basically in this campaign, this sample, we're hitting them with market information once a quarter, essentially. So in January, we're going to start with our local market stats. So it's going to be, you could even take the social media image that we put together every week with all those sales stats. All of our MLSs also put together an amazing statistical information for us now. You can go right onto Flex and get all of the market stats right there, year over year. It's in a PDF format. It's really really easy to navigate. Then February, maybe you're going to put something with the top 3 local places for desserts or coffee places or whatever it is. Again, you're not beating them over the head with real estate. You're giving them other relevant information. Then we're going to talk about, maybe what are the top 5 books? Maybe you've got your top 5 books. Again, just giving them information that's not just real estate. Then we've got something, this is a one that I love, and I've seen someone use this in my neighborhood, and I stole it. Local partner deal. So you go down to a local restaurant and you say, hey, I'm running some postcards to my neighborhood. Would you mind giving 10% or $10 off everybody's ticket who comes in? And that's a great one because you can track. You ask the partner to say, hey, any of these coupons, can you just save those for me? Because they'll have or not coupons, they're postcards. You have them bring the entire postcard. You know which person used that postcard. So great tracking capability there. Maybe put something about what we did as an organization for Red Day. Again, showing we're out in the community. Then you get some more market stats, top places to visit in X. We use TripAdvisor for our data for that. So we just literally go in top 5 places to visit in North Carolina, and you're going to come up with that top 5 list. 5 simple steps to improve your home value, painting, all that kind of stuff, getting the outside working, local market stats again. Then we've got things to do in the area in the fall. November, a Thanksgiving story. So that's like just something that you're sharing, something you did in the community, or something that, a story that's just heartfelt for you. And then December, kind of finishing off the year with something about the agent, the team, what you guys did. And you get your Popeyes, so hand sanitizer for flu season, heart-shaped candies, lottery tickets, Peeps. For some reason, they're the grossest thing on the face of the earth, but people love themselves some Peeps. And I heard someone was saying the other day there's even like Peep Day in some, which sounds really, really bad when you think about it. But there is places that I think where the Peep factory is, they have like Peep Day. Bubbles for the 4th for summer, sparklers for the 4th of July, wrapping paper for December, all of that stuff. So again, just some great ideas to kind of springboard you, and then you can customize them to make them your own. Questions? Everybody snapped that who wanted to? All right. So here just, so again, we have the ability with the Innovate Leverage Services, they can craft this whole campaign for you. My recommendation would be to customize it, make it for you. Don't go with any of pay a little bit extra for the design to get them done for you. So here's an example of what that top 5 places to visit postcard that we had designed. Beautiful picture of the Biltmore on there. And then on the back, more information about yourself, and then the top 5 places to visit, putting that they were found on TripFactor. So again, not your information. This is actually what TripAdvisor says are the top 5 places. You can do that for South Carolina as well if they want to travel. Heck, you can do it for any state you want to. So that's what we got. Ahas, questions, comments, concerns.
I like that you have a whole business plan, budget set up, targets.
Awesome.
So turnkey.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing because that's where a lot of agents will say it harm didn't work, is because they didn't look at the data behind it, combining it with your knowledge of it too. So, did we deliver on setting on what we were expecting for today?
Yes.
Awesome.
And then some.
Thank you.
Yep.
So let me ask this about
Yeah.
demographics.
Mhm.
So I live in an area that's probably more retirement
Sure.
community type. It's not a retirement community, but a lot of retirees.
Mhm.
Is there a different time frame that moving happens for the older generation versus younger?
That's a Lynn question. She just asked that kind of. It's hard to, the turnover thing.
But yeah,
Yeah.
is the turnover different? Like, is the time frame different for older retiring age people?
I mean, I would say I'll answer that question a little differently for you, I guess is the way I'll put that. I think what you'll see is the timeline for them to get here is differently. As far as it takes them 18 to 24 months to make the decision to get here. But then I don't know, what are you guys seeing as far as, do you see them turn over at a different rate than out? let's say, do you see them turning over intentionally at any higher rate? Like AKA not moving into retirement or passing away?
I do it. One thing is people will buy secondary homes, then it becomes primary home. It's not a primary fit, so they sell it to get a primary fit. So
Yeah.
You gotta sell on a buy.
That's a good one. That's a great point there. Yeah.
Right, or if you think about some of the, their investments.
Right.
You know, some people buy it and hold on to it for 1 year and then they.
Yeah. And I think like it might have been Lynn that mentioned like COVID changed that too. Like I had a lot of people that were, they were 5 years from retirement, but they were told they could work remotely for 5 years. And they're like, okay, I can work remotely. I'm gonna do it from the beach, so.
A lot of people come to the community and automatically hook on one spot right away, and then when they move here, realize maybe it wasn't what I really wanted.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly. I mean, I'm probably stuck where I'm at because my kids like the schools, but I would like to move. So.
You have a grandchild factor, I call it.
Yep.
Where the grandchild is.
Yep. What else? What else did you guys take away? Love to hear feedback.
Advertising campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's not, it wouldn't be the first thing as a new agent that I would recommend. I wouldn't,
And
yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna ask, is there a new agent here, less costly version that?
Yeah, I mean, to
Right,
truly
okay, 'cause that's-
dominate, probably not. It's gonna take, because if you do only 6 postcards, you can expect half the results, right? So does it still make sense at half the results? So think of that out. And then this wouldn't be recommended as my first source of
Well, I'm thinking.
First level, of course.
Variation on it,
Mhm.
like maybe,
Yeah.
spending on it when I can.
But you could take all
Go
of that, you
within
could take
and
all
pop
those
ups and
components
things
and
like
make them
that.
be your sphere.
Right,
It could, just kind of put in the same system in place.
Yep.
You out of here?
Yeah.
The sphere needs crap too.
The sphere always also needs crap. All right, well, I thank you guys for your time and your attention and being here, and those of you who travel, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, man. Oh, don't forget if you want the blank worksheets, I got the blank worksheets up there. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, I got it.
Oh, you got that. You got mine? Oh, you did right on your phone.
I forgot my pen. I'll go to my phone.
I got the top 20 mastermind. August.
Just sign up for
Oh, yeah. I know where I
Probably not.
I'm 720.
Yeah.
But if we do